So it's 5:30. I'll call this meeting of the Rockledge Community Redevelopment Agency to order. And so attendance, Sherry, if you could call that.
Commissioner Inman,
Here.
Commissioner Cox, Commissioner Roll,
Here.
Commissioner Lum,
Here.
Commissioner Lamont,
Here.
Commissioner Hinn,
Here.
Commissioner Cameron, sorry,
Here.
and Attorney Maniclier.
Okay, having a quorum, we'll get started. And looking for approval of minutes. Has everyone had a time to take a look at the minutes? And if so, we'll look for a approval or edit.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from our last meeting.
So a motion by Commissioner Inman, a second by
Second.
Commissioner Roll. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Sorry, I'm a little bit unsure how to get my glasses to get going here. Okay, we're looking for the financial report. So looking for a motion to be in receipt of the financial report for July 2017. If everyone has looked at the financial report.
I make a motion to be in receipt of the financial report for the Rockledge Community Redevelopment Agency.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
We have a second by Commissioner Laments, or I understand it goes Laments.
Yes. That'd be fine.
That's easy.
Let me take the time to welcome you. So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and we have a receipt of minutes. So next, reports from staff.
Okay, good evening. Just to follow up from where we were and have been in the past, currently we still have 2 facade grants that are open and active. The one being a New Image Salon and Spa, and the second being Clay's Arts. So we're working on closing those out. And we currently have 3 others that are interested. ABC Pest Control, Southern Greens, FMP Marine, and we just heard in the past few days that the new property owner at the plaza, the Publix Plaza, could be interested in one as well. So we're working on that currently. The property at 889 Barton Boulevard, which is where the old community garden was, has been sold. That property's been closed out, and MEB Law is now the new owner of that parcel of land. So that's done. So that's good. We can mark that one off the books. And then 513 Barton Boulevard, we are waiting for the lease to be signed, but I believe things are going well, and we are thankful that we are able to move forward with that. So that's what's going on with that. As far as the Civic Hub, the city manager is currently has all of City Council looking at the plans and the 90% plans to make sure that there aren't any other inputs that they would like to see before they go to 100% plans. So that's where we are in regards to the Civic Hub. Barnes Boulevard. I know we've all driven it. We all drive it currently, and some days it's better than others. The contractor is currently at 95% of the asphalt paving, so that's good. So we only have a little bit more to go on that. And in addition, they just started the construction on Monday for the Wendy's wall. So that is actually, I know we've talked about it for a very long time, but that's actually underway, and hopefully by the end of this year, we'll all be driving Barnes Boulevard without any cones or going this way or that way. It'll all be a completed 4-lane road, and I know as residents we'll all be thankful for that.
Do we know why there's cones on one side and not the other?
I believe it probably has to do with asphalt and striping, but That is just a guess.
Okay, because I mean, I haven't seen anybody out there in probably a couple weeks at least.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. And then the 95%, I'm assuming, means that they're, because it looks like they're about this far from the top and there's still some little standing water, but not as bad as it was.
Yes.
Is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
They did, and so that's right. So yes, they probably will, and so that's why we're looking at an anticipated date of the end of the year. Basically, the end of December, we think will be a realistic time to have that project be closed out.
Still boggles my mind. Why can't they just, you think it would behoove them to
You would think.
clear it off the books and make people happy? I've been seeing a lot of chatter on the neighborhood things that, of course, they always say it's the city's fault, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, honestly, we don't have much, if any, to do with it.
Correct. It's definitely, yep, it's County Road. That's them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see what we can get to here. So we talked about that and that. Okay, so we had some recent events that I know some of you were able to attend and others were not, but they were really wonderful. The one that comes to mind was on August 4th. We had the Ice Cream Hut just down here on Barton Boulevard, and they had a ribbon cutting. It was actually in cooperation with the Chamber. And the ribbon cutting, it was interesting. They've been open for about a year, so they decided to do their ribbon cutting now. And it was a well-attended, fun event, and they had two activities. They actually had an event on Friday, that was the ribbon cutting, and then on Saturday, they kind of opened it up more to the public and had bounce houses and Mickey Mouse and local police, and it was a really, really wonderful event. So we had that, and then also on the 12th of August, we had Operation Shred, and this took place at the LDS Church here on the corner of Barton and Fisk, and they had two trucks out there, and they were out there from 8 until 10. So it's really, I love this event because they have the opportunity to get rid of all of those papers that just seem to multiply. You can just throw them in the trunk of your car and get rid of them in 5 minutes and just keep on going. And you know that they're shredded and safe. So this was something that was hosted by our police department and was well attended, and just a great outreach for the community. So that's what we've done in the past. Let's talk about where we're going in the future. Upcoming on September 8th, up here at 192 Barton Boulevard, which is right next to the Taco Bell, the yellow Zakharoff building, there's going to be the CRM, Senior Health and Day Center ribbon cutting. That's going to take place between 4 and 5:30 with the cutting at 4:30. And that's going to be a really great event. So we'd like to have you come out, and that's also in partnership with the Chamber again. So we have that ribbon cutting coming up, and then also we have the September 11th, which will be held at Station 3. I know that Councilman Daskey and several of our staff members have been working diligently to put this on. And I'm really excited. There's going to be some really top-notch speakers that they have that were actually, I believe one person was on Air Force One during the attacks and was communicating to another one on ground. So I think that they're going to be really impressive, and we hope that you come out and enjoy that event. I'm looking forward to it.
What's the time then?
6:30.
Commissioner Henry.
I was recently in New York, and it was neat to see that they have we went to the 9/11 museum, and they have a computer that has all the locations of memorials around the country, and it had Rockledge on there with a little picture of the memorial there. So it was cool.
That is cool. That is cool. So, in addition to that, on October 3rd, which is a Tuesday night, will be National Night Out. That's going to be hosted by our police department. Always a great event. Takes place at the Rockledge, at McClarty Park over here, same place that we have the 4th of July celebration. And this is just a great opportunity for you to come out and meet your neighbors and oh, sorry, they changed it.
Yeah,
It's also going to be at the LDS Church, or the Mormon Church, on the corner of Barton and Fisk.
Is that where we had it last year?
Yes,
Yes.
and it was really a much better venue, a lot easier to just have people to have room and get out and be a part of the community. Then on Saturday, October 21st, you have the Hot Rockin' Nights Car Show, which will take place on Barton Boulevard. And this is always a well-attended event. And I'd like to remind you that it is our annual event, but Barton Boulevard will also be closed down for a portion of the time for that car show. So in your travels, if you're going to stop by the car show, remember that we'll have several different places to park and go. And usually, typically, the road is closed down from Huntington all the way down to just past Cedar Street. And then, so it's like that segment of block in McClarty Park. Okay. And then after that, we have the 9th annual Food Truck Bazaar that's coming up. This will be held at Rockledge Square. We had that near where the Planet Fitness is, and always have great trucks and different events that come out, a few different ones. So I would highly encourage you to attend that. And I think that that's it for our upcoming events and things going on. We'll leave out December for now.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Before we move on to unfinished business, I wanted to ask a couple questions. First, on the recent events, I get 200 emails a day, and the city is excellent at getting reminders over. What's the best way of actually just honing in on the city's events that are coming up? And I can't remember. I've been into the calendar. When we go on the city calendar, I noticed that sometimes things are on the city calendar, but to CRA, some of that stuff is on city, and it might be in it might be in Facebook, for example.
Right. Right. So Lisa Nicholas is our public relations guru, and she is very good about making sure that we are all well informed, be it through Facebook or through email or on our website. So we do have several different avenues to reach whatever media speaks to you best. I know, to me, the Facebook notifications always help, but then there's sometimes that email is the only way. So
The question for me, just to help me to focus, because I have 100 things to do, is there a subscribe to, for instance, we subscribe to the city's Facebook page, and then it'll come up on our pages?
Yes, if you like the page, then you will get our notifications. Also, you can subscribe to the calendar, the website calendar. All of those events that Alex had mentioned are all up on the website. They haven't necessarily all been put on Facebook yet, but a portion of them has. But yes, you can subscribe to the website. It's real easy. It's under Notify Me.
Okay. Anything I can get that's more automatic, really,
I think that you can
Yeah.
also get MMS
okay.
messages as well.
It just helps me actually show up for those
we
things.
understand.
And so, okay. And with that, what I'd like to, I want to first of all give apologies. I'm going to take this moment for unfinished business to more formally welcome Carol Amatz to the board.
Yay!
Thank you very much.
I think most of us have been around the city for a while and know that Carol is strongly involved with the city. So it's a great. I'm loving the opportunity of working with her. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
With that, she's new to the board because we had a couple of openings, and I want to thank the city, thank staff for also making changes to the attendance calendar so that those of us who are busy, Sherry, thank you so much. Those of us who are busy and can, on occasion, miss a meeting that's important, what I love about this now is I can look at the attendance record and know whether or not I've missed more meetings than I should, and whether or not my position might be at risk. So I'll bring your attention to that. When you get a chance to take a look at it, you also did the very wonderful thing by actually showing the actual reference of what we're supposed to do when we're supposed to be here. So because of what just happened, and losing people, I never like to lose people, is so if any of us miss 3 consecutive unexcused absences here, basically we don't qualify to be on the board. And then 4 in a row at any 12 months, and I think that's one that occasionally will pop up and get a commissioner, is that
They don't have to be in a role, though.
right, and that's the one,
12-month.
4 to 12-month period, and that's why thank you so much for putting it in this format, so you can actually go back, count 12 months. Obviously, we all are supposed to be here when we're supposed to be here. Things happen, life happens, and I just wanted to point that out, and this will help us to stay current. Mr. Minicler?
Just for the board's information, it's a word of art, excused. If you happen to know you're going on vacation, you're going into hospital, something, all you have to do is bring it up to the chairman at a meeting such as this, ask to be excused from that meeting, and if the board approves it, then that doesn't count against your number of 4 misses in a year. Okay? So
what
if
if
you
you don't?
if you can plan ahead for your misses.
What if you don't bring it up at the meeting, but you notify staff? Is that,
It's excused, the only person who can excuse you from the meeting is the board.
Yes, Dr. Fitra.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is if they don't get it excused, then it's an unexcused.
I believe it counts against the
I don't,
4 in a row.
I'm sorry, I'm going deaf in this one ear.
Yes.
I think the verbiage is unexcused. Isn't that what it
no, it's
says?
3 unexcused, 4 in total.
4 in total. Okay, but
Within 12
what you,
Right, but I've never brought it before the board before. I've
it
always,
should have been, because the board is the only one who can approve your excusal from the meeting.
Well, we've never done it that way
Yeah.
before.
Okay, well.
Well, as a
yeah,
point,
it's always,
So we
I
need-
can only tell you what the city council does and what every other board that I've been involved with in the city, is that if you are going to be unavailable for the next meeting, you notify in public hearing that what your reason is, and that gets you an excused. Okay?
And if it's short notice, can you get a short notice excuse, medical reasons, so forth? How do
You
get a
can,
short notice excuse?
you can ask for it in a written form and just have it brought up in the public hearing so that it can be excused.
Are we checking on this or what?
but is that then something after the fact, I guess?
so what I will,
Yeah,
what I'll,
I mean, there's nothing that says what the process is. Okay, I'm just telling you the way it's been done in the city of Rockledge for 18 years that I've been here. And that's what it's always been. If a member of a board knows that they're going on vacation and they won't be available, then, and it's also good to do, because if you have that type of thing, we have to have a quorum before we can do it. And so if there's ever a situation where there's going to be excused absences that bring us to a point where we're not going to have a quorum, then we need to reschedule the meeting. Okay?
Yeah.
Each one of the various boards has it's different, but you may be right. Yeah,
right.
No,
because this is the newest one.
No, well, the one that was, because I've been I'm the chair of the Business Development Board, Margaret has sent it to me that it's 3 unexcused, 4 in total. That's what it says, because I looked at it recently, because we were looking at trying to adopt something similar to another board, nonprofit board that I'm on. The one that's new to
I'm
me
going to have
is
to go
the,
back and look at all of them again.
okay,
There's resolutions and ordinances that name different boards, and it spells out what the action.
Right, and each one of them is
Okay.
different.
well, the one that she sent me, it looked like it said the city of Rockledge, like it was an in general board committees thing. So,
And-
you know, I know the CRA
And
has
the
a
real
little bit
reason
of.
for the excuse part is so that we do know whether or not you're going to have a quorum. Because you get in 4 people who are going to be gone, and then all of a sudden 3 of you show up for a meeting, and we sit here for 2 minutes and then leave. That's not the way we should be doing business. So if you know you're not going to be available,
Let us know.
let us know so it can be dealt with in an open hearing. The sooner the better, and if it's after the fact, just, all you have to do is write a letter, and whether the board wants to, say it's an excused absence, they can.
I got a question.
I will look at it, and I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, you know,
Because each of them, each board, the charter has a specific way that it's done for the council, and they're all different. I will tell you that. That I do know,
that what, in the public forum?
yeah.
Yeah, that one I've never heard, because I don't, to my knowledge, since I've been here, we've never done that.
See, it's not a public hearing. What you have to do is you're just doing it in the sunshine, and you're just letting everybody else know.
So if,
And then, and they can say, okay, it's excused.
so if I made it, what I would like,
Standpoint of communication.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
so I'm glad I asked, and so and the reason I asked is because there is some ambiguity here. What I prefer is to get rid of as much ambiguity as possible, and we're all laymen here, and we don't operate on the same, so as much as we can have things documented for us. So just currently, the reason I bring it out is going by the documentation that I have seen in the past and that I see in front of me right now. It says something a little bit different than what Attorney Miniclaire says. So, and in all due respect, not going against that, you've been here for years. I would just like to let's go ahead and find out what it is for our committee, and then going forward, we'll all know how to keep ourselves out of hot water. With that, I'll say, if we show up, we're not going to have a problem. So,
I'll have that for you at the next meeting.
thank you very much.
And we have been talking about rewriting the LDRs and the ordinances for at least 15 years that I know of, and nobody's ever gotten to it. So this is the reason why. They are different, and they are created by different ordinances that go on the books. And they get put in the Muni code, and then heaven only knows which is which.
Okay.
This ordinance that's listed is 1542.
We will verify that for you and have a report for you next
That's
month.
way too high a number. If it's an ordinance, I mean, are we talking about what's been posted in the Muni code?
That's what it says
The
here on the
Rockledge
sheet.
code is what
Right.
happens. Now, the ordinance, it could be any number. That isn't how they're set up. What they do is they get numbers, like 10.5 and so on and so forth. If you look at the code of ordinances, that has everything. It's not the resolutions that we should be talking about.
So it sounds like by the next meeting, we should have this all cleared up.
I'll
and-
have it
and written.
all cleared, and I will have a nice little memo for all of you,
Thank you very much.
okay?
All right.
I probably should do that for each and every one of the boards and committees that we have in the city.
I will say it's very difficult to keep track of all these things. I can only imagine over the years. Rockledge has been excellent, in my opinion, getting rid of as much ambiguity as possible. So with that, we'll move to item 5, unfinished business, 5A, budget resolution.
Good evening. So what you had last month was we talked a little bit about the goals moving forward for the CRA and making sure and verifying that what we had in the past is the same going forward. So last month you talked about those and we confirmed that they were. And so this month what we have is what was proposed before council. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Fetro so that she can explain to you what the preliminary budget will look like for next fiscal year.
Okay, Dr. Petro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will try and sorry, talk for as long as I can. So, if I could ask you to get your focus your eyes on actually the last page with all the numbers on it of the resolution. Is the first 3 or so pages, and then the last page is the numbers. So, just a couple of highlights. As Alex said, as we discussed the previous meeting, the goals from this agency board still seem to be very consistent and the same as what is reflected in the 2012 plan. But a couple of things, if you go to the far right column, the 2018 budget, just to give you some highlights. For example, the city's contribution is calculated at just over $900,000. The county contribution is calculated just over $726,000. Both of those numbers represent about a 22% increase. The property values in Rockledge have increased, we're happy to report, close to 23%. So with a slight reduction in millage from 6.25 to 6.2, that's where you get the slight nominal decrease from 23% to 22%. Sir?
And this is based on the properties within the CRA districts?
This is the entire city. It's the entire city. And if you want additional information, Mr. Trine can tell you exactly how he calculates it, but it's the entire city.
No, I think he's given us a
He's
lot
all
of
over
good
it.
information last month.
He gave us Audit 101 last
Right,
time.
yes.
And then to come down a few more lines, the Capital Project Reserve Fund. The thought was, as you heard earlier, the Civic Hub project, those plans are at about 90% complete. The thought was to pull $100,000 out of the Capital Reserve Fund. And further down, you'll see where there's $300,000 for the construction Phase 1 project, but for a total of about $400K to take those plans to being 100% complete, and then going out to bid to start the project, and then hopefully breaking ground within the next fiscal year. So that's where the $400K would assist with all of those processes. Just so you know, and we certainly would be happy to invite the CRA, the agency board, the Kimley Horn, the consultant, over those plans. We'll be inviting them probably in October to come before council and just talk through one last iteration of all those plans to make sure it has all the elements that certainly council would like to see. So that will be happening probably in October. Moving on down to expenditures. Under salaries, that line still has 2 FTE in there, so 2 full-time positions are still budgeted in there for next year. The other ancillary benefits and expenses there, you can go down through and see it's not too much, it's minimally different, whether slightly up or slightly down. The next lines that I wanted to draw your attention to would be for telephone expense, janitorial supply services, building maintenance, and then on down, transfer to the general fund. You can see those lines are zeroed out. With the close attention being paid to CRAs these days, those could be considered maintenance items. CRAs are not to be paying for maintenance items. So frankly, I decided that it was most appropriate to zero those out so that although just in an abundance of caution, that those, what one could consider maintenance items, are not funded by the CRA.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So then the property we now have at 513, how is that? So if there's something that needs to be done there, I mean, although I guess it's part of the lease from what I remember that we had to do that, is that something that, or do we have any other properties that And again, I don't know how it's titled or who's responsible for it, but how does that work from that standpoint?
Where the CRA is housed, for example, there were a couple of things done to that community resource building. The general fund will have to pay for that.
Okay.
Let's see, the facade improvement grant, that has $100,000 in it. That would provide for about 10 facade improvement grants. Next line, the neighborhood improvements. That's a continuation, if you will, of the Cocoa Rockledge Land Development Company, the stormwater improvement over Cardinal, Dove, just west of Cedar over in there. That's $125K for next fiscal year, and then I think it's phase 4 would be in 2019 at about another $125K, and then that would finish that up entirely.
Okay.
The Barnes Boulevard, there's $175,000 there, again, just to finish out whatever will take place at Barnes Boulevard. The CRA has some beautification and other things that it has committed to doing there on Barnes, in addition to pay for the Wendy's wall. So we'll see when the Wendy's wall is complete, whether it's this fiscal year or next fiscal year.
And we're expecting it to be another 175, is that?
Yes, the Wendy's wall, the latest quote I had was $29,000 and change. So you'll see in the next document that we're going to talk about the interlocal, I've put in writing that it would be no more than $31,000.
Okay.
So just to give us
And
a
then
little
the other
room.
beautification, like signs and some other trees and that kind of stuff?
Yes, and that was just to kind of continue what the agency board had in this year's budget was the 175. Well, originally 250, but we had about 175, I think, where we wanted to utilize to that purpose. So that should be plenty of money to get everything done that we need to have done in Barnes Boulevard.
Okay, but at this point, we haven't spent anything for this fiscal year toward that project.
Towards Barnes,
Yeah, because, I mean, it's a zero in that column, so.
I think some signs and some other things, there were some. The double-sided illuminated signs, street
But
signs.
we have purchased those.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It
I
just
don't know an
hasn't shown
exact
up as of
amount.
June.
It must be in another category as far as those expenditures in the actual year-to-date column? Or did that happen after? Because it says as
It's
of
not-
June,
it's-
so
I
I'm
think it's a
assuming
timing
then.
issue, but-
Director Trine will,
Yeah, just as
Answer.
Dr. Fetcher said, it's a timing issue. This report is as of June.
Right, okay, that's what I was
so
going to
that
say.
works.
So those must have been purchased in July then, I guess?
As far as received and then paid.
Okay.
They underwent some changes and, throughout the course of
Yeah.
a few months, so if they just, weren't exactly what we had wanted, so it had to go back to production.
And how much was that on those signs that we spent roughly?
I don't have that number. I'll have to get it to you. I'm sorry? I think it was 10K or less, but I'll have to get the board
Okay,
that number.
that's fine.
I think it was 10K or less. And let's see. The public-private partnership, you can see there's some funds there just in the event. As you know, a CRA is all about, excuse me, redevelopment. So if a potential partner comes in and there might be a way to incentivize a company to come in to a blighted area and improve that, those funds could be available for that purpose. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the $300K for the Civic Hub Phase 1 construction. So I'll stop there and see if the agency board has any more questions regarding the budget.
Commissioner Hand.
We had talked a few months ago about the redoing the Florida Avenue project and kind of phasing that in over a couple of years. One, again, it partly could be timing, because I know we were talking about trying to do starting some of it this year, and most of it would be the next fiscal year. Is that what's, because we have 25 budgeted for the current fiscal year, 10 for the next fiscal year, yet we haven't spent anything, or at least as of June.
The paving for Florida Ave, as I'm sure y'all have driven it, it looks very nice. Anyway, but that is done. That paving amount, I think y'all approved for 130 for that,
Yes, I believe so.
paving and striping. and that came in at about 80,000 or less, I think it was, because I just approved that PO. The striping cannot be done for 30 to 45 days because the asphalt has to cure and something about the oils, and then once you paint them, it causes it to not settle properly. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not saying it very articulately as an engineer might, but from a layperson's opinion, that's what needs to happen. So it needs to cure for 30 to 45 days, and then the official striping will go on there as well. So that may get upwards close to about $100K for that entire project. After the board, we met, and I did talk about that and doing another phase into next year. We really had some conversations about would that be the best use of the agency money, and it would be very, very expensive to do a feasibility study. To do the elements there because of all the parking that comes almost right up to Florida Avenue, and to try and do the curb work like we had talked about, the elevated curbs, it could be $500,000 or more to do, yes. So we can certainly go forward and do a feasibility study for 25 or 30K, but frankly, staff felt that might be really a waste of funds when we know it's almost cost prohibitive to do a redesign of Florida Ave with elevated curbs, more stormwater drainage, other elements that were just very extensive there along Florida Ave. So that's why, Commissioner, that there's not any money budgeted for Florida Ave for next year at this time.
I thought we had 10,000.
Well, there may be, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought, and again, I don't travel Florida Avenue very often.
Excuse me, Florida Ave. Yeah, there's 10K in there. We can put that someplace else, but the feasibility study would be at least 25K. So staff-wise, I don't think we'd recommend spending any on
But putting the curbing, does that help hurt the situation? I mean, I don't know if there's any issues as far as, water runoff and things like that.
Yeah, we couldn't just do elevated curbs without doing extensive stormwater changes and other, I don't know if you, but yeah, that's the way our Public Works Director explained it to me, that it would be very
But by
extensive.
not doing it, it doesn't
Oh, no.
cause any problems
Yeah,
there.
not any more problems by just paving it.
Okay. And I think one other thing that you'd mentioned was maybe putting some trees and other things there. Again, I don't travel that through there very often, so, I mean, was that part of the project that was just done, or is that something we can do or use some of this $10,000 for?
It was not part of the project we just finished. It can be done, and we could, in fact, use some of that 10K if the agency board wishes to do some beautification along Florida Ave.
Well, I mean, being what Coco did to us to force us to do it, I'd be happy of doing that and forcing it back on them, so.
I hear you, Commissioner. We'd be happy to do that. Any other questions or comments?
So just a general question with regard to when it appears changes want to be made. What is the latitude what is the latitude that we have as far as changes? Would there be changes? Is the entire budget subject to change, or for example, would we leave debt service alone normally and move around the funds from the other portions of the budget? Is there anything that's protected, or is there any, what's allowed, what's not allowed? At what point do you get into trouble with other agencies, oversight agencies, et cetera?
Well, I can certainly let our finance director speak to it, but from what I understand, once this is approved, that it cannot be moved line from line. Like in the general fund, I have the city manager has the latitude to move within a department, line to line, if one line is short and another line needs some money. But in the agency board, this budget will stay firm unless it's brought before this agency as a budget amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for us laymen that are looking at these things, Commissioner Hand, thank you so much for your oversight on this, because you're probably more aware than the rest of us, because your business is directly involved. So thank you very much.
I do have a couple other questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Now, being that the revenues is about $600,000 more, knowing that we still have, there's 3 months left, because since these numbers are as of June, right? And there's $600,000 more in revenue than there have been in expenditures to date, or through June. Is there going to be excess? And the way I understand it, the excess is supposed to go to debt service. Is that, or I think we have a choice of a couple of things, but I think that's one of the options.
I think there are 2, maybe 3 options. One is to return it to Brevard County, which I don't think the agency board would like to do. And then the other is to put it in the debt service, I think, reserve fund to pay for future projects.
And do we have a projected idea on what that excess is going to be at this point?
I don't know that, do you have I don't have an estimate at this time.
Yeah, go ahead, come to the podium, Dr. Trine, if you have.
I mean, based on what has been spent and what we expect to expend by the end of the fiscal period.
Okay.
I could definitely provide it to you guys, or ask for it to be provided. So there is a rough number that I could provide to you. I'd hate to shoot from the hip on that number tonight, but I can have it provided to you. And there's one other option you have with the money at the end of the fiscal year. It's the cash balance, so not your fund balance, but your actual cash balance in the bank as of 9/30, whatever that happens to be, that's unexpended. And you can, in addition to debt service or giving it back, you can designate it for a project to be completed within 3 years. So if you were to set it aside for a specific, like the Civic Hub, but that project has to be completed within 3 years.
Okay.
I can get you that number.
Okay. Yeah, that would actually would be good. And then a couple other things. One is the Civic Hub, and again, the way I understand the numbers that are in here, because if I remember correctly, we've got the rough number that we have for the whole Civic Hub from beginning to end is going to be, what, $1.5 million, $2 million?
The latest projection we have from Kimley Horn is $2 million and
Okay.
change.
So the monies that are in here now are basically to get the earth turned over and the plans done, that kind of stuff started.
Yes,
Okay. And then with a rough estimation of what, 2019?
yes. To hopefully have that project done and hopefully completed in fiscal year 2019, but perhaps into 2020. But everybody, all construction companies, as you know, are so crazy busy.
Well, right. No, I mean, I just,
But,
obviously this is a budget as best we can and based on
Yeah.
information we know
Yeah.
today.
Right.
And then you mentioned in regards to salaries that we've budgeted for 2 FTEs. In light of the fact that, again, I don't know how, due to the fact that we no longer have the person that was originally in this position, and I don't know how it's set up that, with Alex being a city employee and how that works from a pay perspective, and who, is she considered now one of the FTE, and do we have who's the other FTE, or do we?
She is not. She is serving in that capacity just to help until the dust settles, so to speak. So there's currently 1 FTE being charged to this.
Is that Renee then?
Yes, it's Renee being charged to this account. I'm sorry? Oh.
It's just, I'm sorry.
So the thought was to give it 30, 60 days, perhaps new fiscal year, to advertise and/or to fill the position. So we would be seeking to fill that position in the next 60, 90 days.
We are looking at filling
Yes.
that position again.
Yes, Commissioner. Excuse me. Any other questions?
Commissioner Henn, any other questions before we allow Dr. Fetra to?
And again, I guess just one final question here, at least that I can see here. The facade grants, which is probably the biggest thing in volume that we do. We had budgeted 130 last year, spent 112 the year before. We spent 95 through June, and yet we budgeted 100. I guess where did we come up with the 100 for that versus the 130? Because I don't know, are we going to spend closer to the 130 this year?
Budget at 100.
Director Bernard,
Yeah.
if you would like to answer.
The way that we are approaching facade grants for the next fiscal year is that we're looking at doing so many per quarter, if you will. And so that way we will not, when we get capped at that 100,000, it will be looked at per quarter, which is a 3-month cycle. So that's where we came up with the 100,000 figure.
Okay, and where, I mean, it being that we're here at 95 through June, based on, I think you just said we still have 2 outstanding? Or 2 that are closing soon?
2 that are, well, one that is in question as far as the status, and the other one that we're ready to close out. We're going to try and get them closed out before September 30th.
Okay, but we should be under the 130?
Yes.
But do we know about where we're going to end up roughly?
I think we'll probably end up somewhere close to where we currently are. What is currently
But we're at
on-
95 now through
95.
June, so.
Right, so I think that we'll probably end up right at 98 to 100.
Okay.
Okay?
So if I can add, I think we did actually discuss this earlier in the year. Former coordinator Nicholas was doing such an amazing job, as I recall, on these facade grants that we were getting more than we could actually really take. And we were discussing, what would our what should we go after for a number. And I don't know that we completely came up with the decision, although I believe it was in the $100,000 category. And so as we've reached that earlier in the year, we were putting that off to try to keep it down because the market had gotten to the point that the secret was out. And literally, I think it looked like we could have done $200,000 if we just left it open. So I don't know whether, from this perspective on the budget, I think what that does is that will close it down to a specific amount. And obviously, if the board would, if the agency would like a different number, the city could consider, but at this point, the city's staff's recommendation is around the $100,000 mark.
The other consideration, Mr. Chairman, as you've heard, not to put too much pressure on the city or the businesses to try and finish it out in the 4th quarter of the year to make sure everything's done. Not to say it'd be capped at the end of June, but if you can get 10 in the first 9 months of the year, that's kind of a good year and seems a reasonable amount to help support businesses so that any trailing projects, if you will, into the 4th quarter of the fiscal year, it enables them to sort of finish up so they can, in fact, get paid out.
Right. And we are under scrutiny, and from the standpoint, unfortunately, those who are scrutinizing us don't actually receive facade grants as a major plus, as we might. This is basically my opinion from what I'm taking in from when I have listened to counsel to the county arguments. So I imagine that also has something to do with our decision to make a limitation. So.
I'm sorry.
No, I just had a question because of, I guess in light of that, being that I think I've been here for a year and a half, 2 years on this board, that from that standpoint and changing how we're looking at things on a quarterly basis, because I know that, I think it was last year, about a year ago, we had done so many projects, we kind of put the brakes on everything and weren't really taking new applications. And if we go to a quarterly basis of doing that, can we do it in a way that, I guess for lack of a better term, kind of, if you will, creates competition to the certain point that, some projects don't either A, use the full $10,000, or B, some might have more bang for the buck than others. That, again, I mean, we may not even get to 10 at $10,000 for the year. So, I mean, I just don't know if there's a way to,
We're trying to be
look at them differently.
a little more strategic, if you will, with some of them, in looking at like a quarterly system, if you will. So to have, say, 3 to 4 in the pipeline, if you will, per quarter, it really enables staff to have adequate time with the business person. It allows the business person to get everything done properly. So I think it was trying to carefully chart them out for the course of the year, if you will, versus have all 10 come in the first of the year and then sort of have to close it off to new applicants, but then they might trail and get it done that year, or they may not. But Most
So
of them
it's
do,
more of
but-
the application process than, I guess, say that, you must submit by this to be presented to the board, otherwise you got to wait till next quarter kind of a thing? Is that what we're looking at? Okay.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, unless there are more questions, staff
No, I'm good.
respectfully request, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay,
I was waiting.
all right, Commissioner Matz. And if we could,
You brought it up earlier. Oh, can I?
yeah, but in the interest of time, if we could try to get to a point, but yes, definitely go ahead and make your question.
Sure. He brought it up earlier. I put a note on it. I'm sitting here looking at the salary, the budgeted salaries all the way from 2016 up. We only have one FTP this year?
There'll be two.
This year.
There were two this year, up
Okay.
until about 30,
until
45 days
recently,
ago.
yes.
Okay, and then you're going to advertise for a new position? What position is that
It,
exactly?
it's not a new position, it's a vacated, one of the two FTEs is vacant at this time. So it would be an advertisement of that existing position,
Okay,
the CRA coordinator position.
okay. And
Does
it
that
just seems
help?
that it's a decrease from our previous 2016-17. Is there a reason for that?
There is, as you heard, Ms. Nicholas, the city clerk at this time, there were 3 to 4 months, I think, of which her salary, when it was transitioning to a new CRA coordinator, she was also in the CRA budget as well, and so her salary, a portion of it, for those 3 to 4 months of transition,
Okay.
was utilized to pay her.
Just trying to make
Yeah, no,
sure we
you're
had
right.
enough to get a
You're
quality
right.
employee for that position
Thank
in
you.
the future, so.
No, thank you, yeah, we do.
Okay, I just was worried
No,
about that.
thank you, Carol.
All right.
Or Commissioner, sorry.
All right,
One thing, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to kind of clarify to what Mr. Hen asked previously with regard to the FTEs and funding from the agency for the positions. Alex and I, as paid by the general fund, we can work for the CRA all day long, but it can't go the other way. So once you've got that position filled, that other FTE, they're dedicated. They're dedicated to the agency's work.
Meaning you guys can work for both, but the CRA coordinator
Correct,
cannot work for
correct.
the city, per se?
Correct.
Okay.
okay. And if there are no further questions, would like to release Dr. Fetro?
Mr. Chairman, if the board is so inclined, staff recommends approval of the budget as presented and of the partnering resolution as well.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Okay, I will make the motion. So I am making the motion to offer Resolution 2017-29-CRA entitled "A Resolution of the Rockledge Community Redevelopment Agency, RCRA, City of Rockledge, Brevard County, Florida, approving the Rockledge Community Redevelopment Agency Management Fund's budget for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2017 and ending September 30th, 2018.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Inman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Does Attorney Mickler need to actually read aloud? Okay, good.
We don't have to.
All
Okay.
right, so let's go ahead and move on. Thank you so much, Dr. Fetro, and I hope you feel better.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, the next item is on unfinished business 5B, discussion interlocal agreement. I believe that'll be, unfortunately, Dr. Fetro.
You're stuck with me.
Yeah, well, we love having you,
no,
but I know you're not
thank you.
feeling well, and I
Thank
do
you.
apologize for holding you up.
To get her some water.
And I hope that each of you has it at your place, is a draft of an interlocal agreement. Okay. As we talked the last meeting, I talked about some deal points in the document. So tonight, you have a copy of the draft, and it's essentially, as I use the word, I think, pretty benign. It's not really promising much of anything. For the new commissioner, you may have read about it or seen it in the news where there's been a lot of attention paid to CRAs from the Brevard County Commission. And there was a meeting back in May or June where the commission and the mayors of the respective cities, city managers, all met. And one of the outcomes of that meeting was where each city would work to get an interlocal agreement to present to the county commission. So I began working and drafting and with help of others, Lisa, Alex, Matthew, some others. And this is what I believe to be a very reasonable product. Mr. Maniclier has reviewed it. It essentially, all of the whereases, as you can see on the front page, the whereases talk about the wonderful things that the city has done, the CRA. The CRA has done, this, the CRA has done that. We've done the blighted car wash over here across the street on Barton. We continue to pay for the maintenance of it. We've contributed almost $2 million of our transportation impact fees towards the Barnes Boulevard project, which is not even a city road. So you could see where we try to focus on the wonderful partnership and partner that the city already is, the CRA. So then if you go over to page 2, a couple more whereases stating the wonderful things that the CRA has done in partnership for the county. Then there are some definitions and legalese, thanks Mr. Maniclier and others, but the expiration of the CRA payment. In doing this research, I think you all have heard me say before that this CRA sunsetted in 2032. That is in fact not correct. This CRA is a 25-year CRA. It will sunset in 2027. So that is what is reflected on the top page, or the top of the page 3. So January 23rd, 2027
We're out of a job.
is when this CRA will sunset. We're out of a job, right? We are hopefully not. We'll get you on another board.
You plan on being here for another 9 years?
But what I then, if you go down in the middle of page 3,
I'll be in my 80s.
you see where item 6A, the city already does an annual report, the CRA already submits an annual report. The city already audits the CRA as part of the city's entire audit, so that's already done. So we're just simply reflecting that we will do this because we already do this. But then on item C, that is one of the items that the county commissioners would like to see in place, what is called a performance audit. And as you all heard so astutely last meeting, our finance director gave us an Audit 101 lesson. We have very carefully written this so that the county's going to pay for it if they want an audit done.
Yes.
They can only do it up to one time per fiscal year. The county and the city will select the auditor. It's not just the county picking the auditor. The city will have a say as to when the field work is done. Again, not just the auditor showing up. The city will have an opportunity that if there's a disagreement on facts, the city will have an opportunity, or the CRA technically will have an opportunity to address that under management comments. And also, and I think even most importantly, is they will not be allowed to direct any operational items, whether with staff or with finances, anything. They are simply coming in to say, CRA, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing per the CRA plan and per statute? That's it. So we believe this is written as tightly as possible to protect the CRA and the city. And then page 4, it goes on to identify, the city's Exhibit A, that list of projects that I had shared with the board last time. It's an attachment to this, so Exhibit A, and it's all listed there per the CRA's plan. And that's essentially, that's all. And of course, we promised to meet, either board chair and the city manager, one or both. We'll meet with the respective county commissioner in our CRA's district. So again, we don't mind meeting, hopefully, Mr. Chairman. So that's it in a nutshell. I believe if the agency board likes this, I would ask for a recommendation of approval, and then it would go to the city council for a final approval, and then I will present it to, probably in addition with our mayor or deputy mayor, to the county commission.
Okay. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Dr. Petro. And if I could, before we entertain any more questions, just to review it, how I see what Dr. Petro
Just have
pointed out.
one
is-
question.
Before I do,
Okay.
just to point out from the standpoint that basically, as I read this, and of course, we haven't had the ability to read it, and analyze it, and there's good reasons for that. As I understand it, basically, we've written this to the point of, this is our charter, this is what we're supposed to do, this is what we have to do. And I do not believe, as far as what I read, and I think the staff will agree, they're making the point that we have to do certain things, and we're not going to agree to do anything other than what was already in our charter and what we have a fiduciary responsibility to do. And that way, still, we've got this document because they want that document. Those of you who attended the meeting know that they basically want to change everything, which would be a major issue because it's probably not legal for them to do such. So we're pointing out what we have to do, and we're not going to do outside of that for our own protection as well. So.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Maniclier just brought a great point to my attention, and if the agency board would allow it, under performance audit, some of the language there where we are trying to define what we believe the performance audit could only include, he recommended to also put that under definitions, like a 2C, the very same language, but just reflect it twice. So they don't try to say, well, it's not under definitions, so anyway, so if the agency board's okay with that, that would be the only slight addition we would like to make.
Okay.
My recommendation was that we just add a C in the definitions and just put one sentence in there to assess the CRA's compliance with its own community redevelopment plan and with the Florida statutes, period. And that defines it. We also set out in the body on page 3 the statutory items that could be considered by the county and the city when we start talking about what the performance audit is going to include. The reason why you have to be very leery of what an audit is, I think Matt can tell you, it can mean a million things. To the FBI, it's forensic. You're finding, it just depends who you get. IRS, it's a different thing. An audit is not an audit is not an audit. It is exactly what the purpose is and who the auditor is. And you've got to be very careful with them. And the definition, the more we can nail them down to what the parameters are going to be, the better it is for the city.
And as a point of clarification, Mr. Maniclier, do we have to do anything other than simply, do we have to make a notation in this meeting?
You can approve the interlocal agreement with the addition of a 2C under definitions. That would just say that one sentence, assess the CRA's compliance with its own community redevelopment plan and with the Florida statutes. Okay.
I got one question on this. This is our draft of the agreement, right? Or is this some input from the county, what they wanted, or is it all just ours?
I actually met with the county manager on 2 occasions, and actually he did share a 2-page list of bulleted items that all of the county commissioners gave to him. Frankly, commissioners, some of which I was not going to even consider agreeing to on behalf of our CRA. So I saw a few elements of which I thought we could give. One is regarding the audit. The other is about meeting with them. And frankly, that's it. I will tell you that the commissioners, again, off the record, from the commissioner's perspective, they just want to make sure CRAs sunset when they're supposed to sunset and don't have any debt when they go to sunset.
Yeah.
So we will sunset in 2027 and we won't have any debt when we sunset. So for the most part, we're going to meet what probably at least 3 votes will like. There may be one that frankly doesn't like this, but yes, to answer your direct question, I did meet with the county manager and got feedback from him in advance of drafting the document.
Can I ask a procedural
Mr.
type of thing here? So we approve this, city council approves this, and then county commission approves it. Is that correct?
Yes,
And then it's, if you will, ratified, I guess?
yes.
And as you just stated, I guess the really big point is that it's in writing of when the sunset date is really, I guess, the crux of it.
It is, Commissioner.
Okay. Because everything else that's in, I mean, you're really more, the first whereas are really more stating facts as to, hey, this is what we've done for you for the area. And then everything else is, for the most part, stuff we were already doing.
Yes, essentially so.
All right.
And what's the definition of TIF? I haven't seen that.
Oops, tax incremental financing? Maybe we should spell that out.
Is that just the dollars that come in there? Is that?
And I'll probably need the finance director to give a better definition of this, but essentially the properties in the CRA at the point of time of its inception were valued at X. And then over time, in any given year, whatever that value of that property goes to is that tax incremental amount that comes to the CRA. Is that essentially? Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up from the finance director. That audit 101 last month was great.
That's good.
That's all that
Frozen in
matters really
time,
at the end of the day.
And then anything that
that
goes
he
up or
understands
down.
it.
Believe me, back in the downturn, it was quite interesting. A different city where I worked at that time, of course, they lost value. So they literally lost funding and had less and didn't have any. So it was
Right.
quite a difficult situation
It was a
in the
difficult time
downturn.
there.
Anyway, I digress.
Okay.
Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. Sorry for you having to be up this long for
No, I'm happy to
your
answer
conditions
questions.
currently. So if I understand it, then what we're looking for is the approval of interlocal agreement. And Mr. Minicler, you can, is there a reference, there's already a reference within this document that will reference the 2C?
If the motion to approve with the addition of a 2C, and then read that one part of the sentence, definition,
I'll give it a try.
performance audit, and then that one sentence.
I move that we accept the resolution as, the draft resolution as written, with the exception of adding a definition under 2C. The performance audit shall only assess the CRA's compliance with its own community development plan and with Florida's statute. Section, is it 111.45? Okay,
Okay.
May I,
too specific.
After statutes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, she used the word resolution. May I interject that it should probably be an interlocal agreement? It's not a resolution.
Correct,
I
interlocal
apologize.
agreement.
I don't mean to,
Interlocal agreement.
thank you so much.
Let me
I'm
amend
sorry.
that.
Thank you.
Please approve the interlocal agreement, not resolution.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Cameron, actually. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Dr. Fetcher.
I have one question. According to the agenda, it says Attorney Minicler read aloud the title of the resolution. Is that related to this?
No.
No, that was the.
That was the previous
There
one?
was previous, and there was determined, but we'll probably strike that
Okay,
from the
just
minutes.
wanted to make
We
sure.
have to do it.
We're not changing 6C at all. It's just going to say it again. And we
Correct.
put it in the definition provision so that when anybody says, well, we want to do this with it, they say, no. That can go.
All right. With that, consent business, there is none. New business, none. Reports from commissioners. Commissioner Laments?
No.
No? No report?
I get it. Easy.
No. Somebody clear? All right, and staff? All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned.